Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Recovery Corner. I'm your host, Candace Rose, and on today's episode, I have invited Chris Marshall, or do you prefer Christopher?
Oh gosh, no, just Chris.
Just Chris, okay.
Unless you're my mom or like the government, it's just Chris.
All right, awesome. Well, I want to make sure to clear that up in the front end so I don't call you the wrong name. Right. So yeah, we've got Chris Marshall here, he is the founder of Sans Bar, which is based out of Austin, Texas. And Sans Bar, for those of you that don't know, they really introduced this concept of an alcohol-free bar, providing space for people to foster healthy connections in a fun environment without the influence of alcohol. Chris, I'm really excited to have you on the show. I still love going out here in my community. The only options to go out, though, are at alcohol saturated venues. So I just, do the best that I can with that environment, but I appreciate what you're doing. And I'm really excited for our listeners to learn more. So I gave a little summary, but please feel free to expand on Sans Bar a little bit based off what I said.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. Really glad to be here today. And I think you pretty much nailed it. Sans Bar is all the bar without the alcohol. We want you to feel like you are in a wonderful, safe, inviting, and inclusive space that has great drinks, great music, comedy shows, game nights, trivia, all the things you would find in any bar in America without the alcohol.
So cool. It's so rad. And as a person in recovery too, I think it's just really cool to promote that idea. I think culturally, it's almost like people don't learn how to engage socially without that kind of social lubricant of alcohol. So just holding space for people to learn hey, you can be yourself and still be goofy and still dance and have fun. And you can do it all on your own. So I love it. And yeah, really excited to learn more. But before we dig into Sans Bar, I do want to ask a little bit about yourself. So, what's your background? What's your connection to recovery or sobriety? How'd you arrive here?
I am a person who identifies as a person in long-term recovery. I've been alcohol-free for exactly, as of this recording today, 15 years. So...
Woo! Yes. This is going to air later, but I'm just going to say it. So today is February 16th, and Chris is celebrating 15 years in sustained recovery. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I wanted to do this podcast today because I could not think of a better way to celebrate 15 years of freedom than to have a conversation about all the things that recovery has brought my way. So quick story about background on me. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I started drinking when I was in high school. But a big reason that I started drinking was because I felt so alone. I was one of those people who always felt like an outcast. I never really felt like I belonged in my friend group. And so when alcohol came along, it felt like there was this key that unlocked this door to this friendship that I always wanted. And when I drank, I felt like I belonged. I felt like I was a part of the group. I felt like these other boys who I wanted to be like so badly were accepting me. And very quickly, I learned that I was not built to drink a lot of alcohol. I mean, I was just bad at it. From the second time I drank, I got a DUI. I totaled my mom's car and I ended up in jail the second time I drank. There was clear indication that we were just not meant to be together, alcohol and I. We just weren't, right? But I was trying to make it work because I wanted to belong. And all my friends were drinking. They were going to the country club and drinking. They were having a bonfire and drinking. They were going to the coast and fishing and drinking. Everyone was drinking. And I just wanted to belong. So belonging is at the center of my story, and it's the center of Sans Bar, because the reason I created Sandsbar was because I needed a place to belong. So I get through college or I don't get through college the first go around. I struggle through college. I drop out because I'm drinking too much, and I go to treatment. And at 23 years old, I stopped drinking. And that's really where my life began. And really, that's where the story of Sandsbar began, because a big part of my recovery was the people around me wrapping me up in love, deciding that I was worthy of community and connection, and really choosing to actively love on me until I could love myself.
Mm.
And once that seed was planted in my heart, it only grew as I hit 1 year sober, 3 years sober, at 5 years sober. I went back to school, became a counselor, and working as a counselor, substance use counselor, I was working with other people who were like me. I became a wounded healer so I could help other people as they navigated the very rocky road of recovery. And I was growing myself, but as I was working with people in treatment centers, I kept hearing the same thing over and over again. What do I do now? Now that I've decided I don't want to drink, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I have fun? And what's the point of all of this? Is it just to stop drinking and using, or is it to have a life? And for me, the answer was to have a life. But even I couldn't answer that question. Like, what do I do for fun? Like, how do I experience fun in this world? And I kept asking myself that question until 2015. Maybe 2016. I had someone that I knew that was very close to me pass away. And one of the last conversations we had was this idea that there's just nowhere to go when you decide to leave your friends. You decide to not drink or do drugs anymore. There's nowhere for you to go. There's nowhere for you to belong to. And that conversation, and that person subsequently passing away after that conversation, just broke me. It just broke me. And I realized then that someone had to do something about this. There should never be a life lost because there's nowhere to go on a Friday night. There should never be a family member missing at Thanksgiving dinner because they couldn't figure out where to go to have fun and meet other people. To me, the how Sandsbar would develop was a problem, but the why was easy. The why was because there was millions of people in this world who are absolutely lonely and who are needing the space so desperately. So I didn't know the how, Candace, but I knew the why, and I knew that I needed to make this happen. And that's how Sandsbar was born.
Well, that segues perfectly into my next question. But before I dig in there, I just want to, well, first off, I'm really sorry for your loss. As you're like telling your story, so much of it I was resonating with, because my experience with young people in recovery was really birthed out of the loss of somebody close to me, and feeling that same feeling of like, I can't sit here and just let this continue to happen. So I share that feeling with you. And, you know, part of what I do every day is kind of like keeping their voice at the table. And kind of, like being an advocate and trying to help reduce stigma and provide space. And while I don't have a sober bar, we do some pretty fun stuff in our community. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of get into more of this, but yeah, like connection is so at the key. Like so many people that I encounter struggling with substance use disorder, it's like, feeling isolated and alone. And then even people that I know that are, they clearly recognize alcohol is creating problems in their life. They're so attached to the communities that they know, even though those communities aren't like healthy communities for them. And there's like this fear that, there's only two options: either continue with the unhealthy community or be alone. So I just, I'm sorry again for your loss, but I also want to, thank that person for being that, that light, that fire starter in your life that's like creating this space in Austin. But I also know that you're kind of like popping up around the country too. So in other places also, but yeah, so let's talk about Sans Bar and yeah, what inspired this business model.
Yeah. So, like I said, I had this very unfortunate inspiration. And to your point, I'm mindful of that inspiration all the time. I don't think a day goes by that I don't remember like why I'm here. And as much fun as we have and as many cool things as I've done, that's never lost on me. That this started because someone's not here anymore. And I just want to prevent that from happening. So Sans Bar is a physical space here in Austin. And because of COVID, we're only open on Fridays right now, which has actually been kind of cool because it means like you have to kind of like catch it on Fridays.
Right.
So show up, they have a good time. And it's really more intentional than when we were open a few more days. And I kind of like the model. But the model itself is just, you come into the space, and when you walk in, you're greeted right away. We welcome you in, we hand you a menu, and then you get to try all these amazing non-alcoholic drinks. And I know for a lot of people that can be somewhat scary. Like, what are these drinks? What am I trying? And I love to put people's mind at ease and let them know that everything that we serve is really on a spectrum. So there's drinks that are very almost kind of like botanical sodas where it doesn't taste like anything or familiar, all the way to like an old fashioned or gin and tonic that may mimic the flavor profile of some traditional cocktails. Mm-hmm. I love to have a menu that's diverse because I know that people come into this space with very diverse experiences, right? Some people are in long-term recovery and they want nothing that tastes like alcohol. And if that's the case, we got, I think, 5 cocktails for you. But if you're looking for something like to take a break for dry January and you normally drink, you may want something that tastes like something you're familiar with. And we have about another 5 or 6 cocktails that taste similar to traditional drinks. Whatever your relationship with alcohol is, there's a drink for you. But it's so much more than the drinks. It really is about people connecting to each other. It really is about coming into the space and someone knowing your name. My favorite Friday nights are when people come in and they don't know anyone. And they walk out and they find a best friend, or they're texting each other's information to each other at the end of the night, right? That is what I live for. I live for those times when people just find their new circle group.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Like fostering those connections and healthy connections too. Yeah. Thank you so much. I wish I was closer. I'm still tinkering with the idea of coming down for South by Southwest, but
I think you should.
I know I should, but I'm also trying to look at maybe buying a house this year. So I'm kind of like money, flights, that stuff, whatever.
I get it.
Another piece of recovery, repairing your credit. Next week, we'll be talking about that.
Yeah. I'll be tuning into that one because
right.
It's been 15 years and it's just now getting back to like not embarrassing. Yeah, it's one of those things. It takes what it takes, right? Like, I think that we're all in different places in many different fields of our recovery lives. And that's, for some people, that's one thing. Yeah, I was kind of lucky though. I didn't rack up a ton of debt. I was very lucky, very, very lucky.
Yeah. Full transparency. Most of my collections were unresolved detox bills. And then one was like a 20,000. I broke my elbow when I was like 21 years old, riding a bike under the influence of alcohol. All of my debt is like related to my alcohol use. So paid that off. Anyway, so that's besides the point. But I I just have to decide or determine if I can siphon a little bit of money out of like a down payment for a home to go to Austin, which I've been wanting to go to Austin for a long time.
I think it's like an investment at this point. I think, I'm not your financial advisor. You should always consult your financial advisor, but I think it's a bit of an investment because then you can bring Sandbar to Durango, and there you go.
Yes. Oh man, my brain is ticking right now. I think I told you when we talked last week. There's this event in Durango called Snowdown, and it was created as an intent, like a family event, but in the 43 years or something that's been around, it's really turned into a drinking fest. So with YPR, we host a mocktail crawl, which actually a couple of the restaurants only have mocktail menus because I went and talked to them and I was like, hey, you guys should really have some other options besides like soda and tea. So that kind of like got, more mocktail menus at the restaurants in town, but that'd be kind of cool to like, I don't know, maybe we could collaborate, have like a Sandbar pop up in Durango during Snowdown, because it's a huge event. I mean, people flock to Durango, especially former college students. There's like former college students that it's like a ritual to come back down here every January, which is crazy, but that would be pretty cool. It's okay. This is just a podcast. We get phone calls. It's real life here.
I could have sworn I got a new phone. And I'm just like, oh, I thought I muted it.
Whatever.
Sorry.
It's real life. You might hear my dog bark when she sees a dog outside she doesn't like. So, it's real life.
It's real life. So I apologize.
Well, yeah. Well, let's circle back. So you were talking about like the different kind of menu items that you have.
Yes.
Some are, because I know, like for some people, I know people that are in recovery and they drink like 0 proof beer, like NA beer. They like the flavor of it. So yeah, who knows? Maybe even somebody would want like, I don't know, do you call them virgin, like margaritas, or is that like, I don't know.
We would say like 0 proof, because I think
0 proof. Okay.
Even the idea of virgin is like, I don't know. Sometimes I like the term, sometimes I don't. Or even the term mocktail. Some people hate the word mocktail. I personally don't mind it. But I'll be completely honest with you. Like, full disclosure, I did not have any NA beers until I was a decade sober.
Oh, wow.
I just did not feel like it was something I wanted to even try. And then I eventually did. And it was like, oh, actually do like beer. And what I found also is that more than me liking it or not liking it, I was able to have a new relationship with those like beer, wine, spirits. So like now, if I drink a beer with my meal, like a Budweiser Zero or a Heineken Zero, I literally don't even finish it, or I'll just have one. Because it's literally like, it doesn't change the way you feel at all. Like, not even a little. It can't, right? So it's like, maybe I'm just done. Maybe I just don't want any more of this. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really interesting that in a weird way, you become, you return to like the right and proper way to relate to a beverage, which is just like, it's not to dictate your life or to change the way you feel. It's simply there. That's been my personal experience, but I totally get that everyone has their own relationship with this stuff. And I've always been a proponent of the space, especially Sandbar, not being about the drinks. It really is about the community. That, and because go ahead.
Well, that's where I was driving at too, is because you talked about having options for people in recovery, but like, this isn't just a place for people in recovery, it's for anybody. And it's just an opportunity. So yeah, kind of like having some beverage items that, basically without words say like, everybody's welcome here, because you're offering like so many different varieties and different concepts of like the menu items that they can get there. So with that kind of in mind, like, how do you see, this is a kind of a twofold question, but what's the benefit of providing a sober venue such as Sandbar and the experience like for the recovery community versus the general public?
Oh, well, I noticed that people in recovery, I wish they would frequent it more, frankly. I was going to say that they don't get it, but I think that it's more of like they don't frequent it as much as they could. I believe that Sandbar is a great space for anyone, especially people in recovery, because as most people in recovery understand, that it's not about just not drinking. Mm-hmm. It's not about just being abstinent from alcohol. It's about having a full, rich, and intentional life. And that is what I believe the physical space is all about. It's about that rich, intentional life. I think that people have a bad perception of what a non-alcoholic bar would be, because they think that it's all about the drinks, right? They're thinking like, oh, you're just pretending to like have faux beer and have faux wines, and what are you gonna take, like water shots? Like I get the concern, but what I want people to do is to practice a little bit of, just give it a try. Just give the opportunity, or give the opportunity to connect to other people a try, and just see what happens. Because I think when people allow that to transpire, amazing things happen. And then people who are sober curious, it's good to come into a space that has people in recovery, because they get to see that people in recovery aren't boring. They're not dead. Like they're still vibrant people who like to date, who like to dance, like to do karaoke. They're people
love who karaoke.
Absolutely love karaoke. That's one of my favorite things, is to do sober karaoke.
Oh gosh.
And
I gotta come. I gotta get down.
I mean,
if I make it down there, we're karaokeing together then. I mean,
oh, for sure. Like that Friday night. So like if you come the 18th, which is a Friday, March 18th, then Sam's Bar will be open and we will do karaoke. And then the 19th is an all-day thing, 12 to 6. So you can even like fly in that Friday, hang out at Sam's Bar that night, wake up, get to Sam's Bar at noon, and you could fly out that night. I mean, back in Colorado.
All right. I'll look into it. Is there pretty good public transportation there? Like I
no,
could get
awful.
back?
No, it's just sexist. What do you know? It's awful.
So I would want to rent a car then.
I mean, Uber, you can Uber if you feel safe doing that, you know. But yeah, there's no like bus you can hop on. There's no like it's, I mean, yes, there is, but it's not. When I think of public transportation, I think about like easily accessible, and anyone that comes into the city could just like hop on a bus.
Right.
That's not the way it is here.
Okay.
It's got a long way to go to do that. So I would just say Uber.
Okay.
I also live right by the airport. So if you just need a ride, I'm not even kidding. Like I will literally pick you up and drop you off at your Airbnb or wherever you stay. Cool. And yeah, it'll be totally fine.
All right. You're making this too easy. So, all right. I'm going to start looking at flights. I'll try to find a friend to go with me too.
There you go. Bring a friend.
We'll go paint Austin red or something like that. Paint the town red.
Burn orange.
Anyway, I'm sorry, getting down a rabbit hole. So we were talking about how this like benefits the community, whether you're in recovery or sober curious, which is a new term, newish. I'm familiar with it, but it sounds like you definitely are attracting that kind of sober curious crowd. So from like your experience and what you see, I mean, for anybody that's maybe not really familiar with that term or concept, like how would you describe the sober curious movement?
Well, the sober curious movement is it's a collection of people who are evaluating their relationship with alcohol. I think it's best described as kind of mindfulness around alcohol use. The term was coined by Ruby Warrington in 2017, who wrote the book Sober Curious. Ruby's a good friend of mine. And it just so happened that the perfect storm of events happened. You know, Sam's Bar was just getting off the ground in 2017. And then also you had Ruby's book Sober Curious was out there. And then you had like these products that were coming online. So you had all these things kind of happening all at once. And the result was this incredible overflow of people being more mindful about how they interacted with alcohol and realize, like, wait a second, I drink to socialize, I drink to celebrate, I drink because it's the afternoon, I drink because I'm out for work, I drink because it's a fancy dinner, I drink because I'm on a plane, I drink because, like, people started to realize, like, oh my gosh, alcohol is at the center of everything that I do in my life. And maybe that's not healthy. We know it's a known carcinogen. We know that it's a net negative on our life. We know that it's bad for our mental health. And so people are becoming aware of that, and they're choosing to take a break for a month or even 6 months off of alcohol. And it's just a beautiful thing, because people like myself have had to hit what can be defined as a rock bottom. Like they had to get to a place where they had no other option but to stop. And what we're seeing now is people that are sober curious, they're saying, like, wow, I don't think I'm at a rock bottom, but I do recognize that alcohol could become a problem for me, or I just have a better life when I'm not drinking. So I'm going to stop drinking so I can have a better, healthier life.
Nice. Yeah, very well put. It's really been interesting to see that too. I mean, just being a person in recovery and like identifying yourself as a person in recovery, I think even gets people's like wheels turning. I think that reminded me of something I was going to say earlier. You were talking about, like, Sans Bar isn't about the menu. It's about the experience. But I think for, people that are drinkers, whether it's, problematic drinking behavior resulting in like addiction or just casual drinking, like, our culture is like, sometimes there doesn't even have to be an event. It doesn't have to be a celebration. There doesn't have to be a funeral. There doesn't have to, like, sometimes just the event is the beverage, like the event of the night is the bottle or whatever. So I think that that's kind of hard for people to wrap their head around, when you're like, no, it's not about the drinks. Like, yes, we provide drinks, but like, we're not, we want to provide an experience and not like a beverage item per se, even though you do have a very robust menu. So trying to tie that back into where we were though, but yeah, so like this sober curious movement, it's really encouraging to see people start to just kind of have that like reality check, because I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything. Some people might think so, but like, alcohol really limits like what we're capable as human beings. It's almost like an oppressing agent. When I meet people in recovery, like such as yourself, like the level that I see people exceed to, like in recovery, just, from having alcohol not be a part of it, is like you save energy, you save time, you save money, and you can take all those resources and put them towards like bigger things, rather than like sleeping all day on a Saturday. You're like, no, I'm going to like work on my business plan and I'm going to find investors. Like you have all these like ideas, like your brain is firing on all cylinders. So it's really cool to think that more people are kind of revving their brains up by like taking this break from alcohol and just imagining kind of like what could be possible in the future as people start to maybe the paradigm shifts around how we operate as a culture. And I have nothing against drinkers. Some of my favorite people on the planet are drinkers and they can hold their own. But making it more normal to be a non-drinker, because it is like one of those things too. And also I appreciate like places that have menus with non-alcoholic drinks. For whatever reason, alcohol is like that one substance that we actually have to like explain why we're not using it. Nobody's coming and being like, why aren't you using heroin? What do you mean you're not doing other drugs, but like when you tell somebody you don't drink, they're like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Are you pregnant? Are you, which honestly, it's not really anybody's business, but for whatever reason, that's like more often the response. So if you have a drink that's like,
that's actually by design. I mean,
Right.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of people who just like scratch their head about like, why is it that people can question your use of alcohol or not your use of alcohol? Why is it that we think that it's weird that adults don't drink? The reason is because alcohol industry made it so. Like big alcohol since prohibition made it their goal to make alcohol in the fabric of everything that we do in life. That is why all the festivals are sponsored by alcohol companies. That's why liquor companies pay so much money in product placement in movies and television to have their products featured in the part of the movie where they're having a classy, elegant experience, or the villain is, planning his next revenge. Like all of this is by design. It's not an accident. It's not an accident at all. So when people wake up and realize that there is a conspiracy of sorts, like big alcohol has been pushing its way into your consciousness and like making it seem as though you cannot have fun without alcohol, people start to understand like, wow, that really is a heavy and creepy like marketing tactic, right? To make it about being an adult and about being fun. And you can't have fun as an adult if you're not drinking alcohol. I think that it's, from just a purely marketing standpoint, it's genius to make everything and everything that's social about alcohol. Think about, I can't think of another product that we think that way around. I mean, yeah, I'm thinking like, I don't know, the next thing that comes to my mind is milk. Like, like, you don't drink milk? You're being weird. Like, you're not drinking any milk? You should be drinking more milk. Like, we don't say that. We don't say like, you need to cut back on your milk use. I mean, not really, right? Like it's by design. It's by design. And that's what I'm so excited about this new movement is like, it's not about being anti-alcohol. It's about being pro-aware, conscious, mindful. Those are the words that I keep hearing myself say over and over because it's true. Like, this is the movement that's happening around non-alcoholic drinks and sober curiosity mirrors the plant-based movement a lot. And in many, many ways. 20, 30 years ago, the idea of something being plant-based was like laughable. Like, plant-based, what does that mean? But if you said meatless, people understood what meatless meant, right? And then it went from meatless, which is like anti-meat, like meat's bad, to veggie. And when they started talking about veggie burgers, veggie patties, vegan, vegetarian, everyone found that it was much more accessible. And I think that's what's going to happen with these non-alcoholic beverages and just this movement, is that we're going to move away from being like alcohol bad to alcohol's not even part of the conversation anymore. We're not even focused on alcohol. We're so beyond alcohol, that we're really focusing on something else. And so my hope is that Sans Bar leads the way in that regard, that we start to move away from talking about how bad alcohol is and how unhealthy it is and how it destroys. We know that. What's more important is this loneliness epidemic that we have in this country. That's the plant-based part of it. The part where we start dealing in the affirmative. The affirmative is we need each other. We've been apart from each other for 2 years because of this pandemic, but really 2,000 years because of the way that we are constantly pulling ourselves apart from each other. We need community. We need connection, and that's what the focus should be, not about how bad alcohol is.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, even within our own organization, we're really big proponents of like the words we use have power. So, I mean, even with this whole concept, like you can say the same thing using two different sets of words and convey a completely different message where, if you're like anti something, there's a group of people that are going to feel like attacked, and get defensive. Where, instead of like saying non-alcoholic, that I think that's where like zero proof or I don't know, would that be like the best alternative to saying non-alcoholic or alcohol free, or maybe we
I
need to
like
come
to
up.
say, I like to say zero proof because again, it takes away. It's still alcohol still in the conversation. Like when you say non-alcoholic, it's like, but alcohol still part of that conversation.
Mhm.
That's why I like to say zero proof cocktails or even mocktails because once again, it's not alcohol's not part of the conversation. And I think that is going to be that's where the rest of the culture will pick this up is when we can finally get used to language that doesn't center itself around alcohol. That is
Mhm.
why prohibition failed 100 years ago. You know, prohibition failed because this was about moralizing people's relationship with alcohol. If you drank, you were bad, you were a sinner, you were immoral, you were a drunk. Um, there were all these negative connotations. And so people fought against that. And I think
Mhm.
that this time we can take our lessons from history and do better and say that this isn't about you as a person or you being a bad person or you being even you needing to stop entirely. All this is all we're saying is that we need each other, we need connection, and the best version of ourselves is alcohol free.
Yeah. And I've seen that you brought up the pandemic, obviously something we can't ignore. Have you, I mean, obviously business has changed for you, or I'm sure hopefully it's going to be getting back to normal or whatever normal is as we will know it moving forward. But kind of outside of whatever pandemic put on like business operations, like as you started opening your doors back up, um, did you like notice any like conversations or changes in people's perceptions around alcohol consumption, uptick or decrease or?
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people who had maybe checked out Sam's Bar once or twice before the pandemic started showing up a lot more
Hmm.
because I realized like, okay, I really may have an issue with alcohol, but more importantly, I'm lonely because I'm not drinking at bars and restaurants anymore. So I need to find a new place. So I've seen this new group of regulars that's there almost every Friday. It's
Hmm.
like they know each other. They, every time they come in, hey, like the whole thing, because now it's not a novelty thing. Coming to Sam's Bar used to be like this novelty thing, like, oh, I'm gonna go to that sober bar place because I want to see what it's like and I want to try the drinks. Now it's like, no, this is my place. These are my people. And I want to show up to have a good time. So people will go to their 12-step meeting and then after their 12-step meeting, they'll come over and they'll have a few, zero proof cocktails and they'll chat and they'll do karaoke or whatever we have going on that night. And they go home. They get to lay their head on the pillow and know that that's another day without alcohol.
So cool. It's inspiring, or it's encouraging to know that you kind of saw like an increase in engagement once you were able to open your doors up. I can say with YPR, we do like recovery support services, including like all recovery meetings. And when the pandemic hit, we had to quickly pivot and take everything virtual. Which at, April of 2020, people were like, what are you talking about? I go sit in a virtual room and be vulnerable with a bunch of people I, maybe know or probably don't know. Or so we saw, I mean, our meeting here, we were averaging like 30, 35 people at our meeting every week. And then as soon as it went virtual, that went down to 8. So it was like we saw 75% decrease. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that we engage with are like people on probation. And even because of the pandemic, like a lot of their accountability was reduced because like if you're sick, you don't have to go to the testing facility. And unfortunately, we do see that with people that struggle with substance use disorder. There's like a certain point where people need help being held accountable till you kind of arrive at the decision to want to do it for yourself. So, unfortunately, some people were remanded and thrown back in jail. I know at least one person who didn't even survive because of, going back out there. And now, though, almost 2 years later since that started, our group has gone back up and we've seen old faces come back in and more new faces. And I have more people reaching out to me now. And actually, interestingly enough, too, like a lot of people I used to like drink with or, like somehow our connection was like through partying and drinking, like in our younger days. And now they're like reaching out and they're like curious, I try not to pry too much when people ask, like, so I'm not like, until they kind of invite it. So I don't know if they want like sober curious, maybe. I know at least one person reached out to me recently that was like, I don't want to stop drinking, but I want to stop having problems with it.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it was part of my journey to, abstinence
Yeah.
is for me. I tried that. I was like, I'll just drink on the weekends and then I'll just do, I'll take a break for a month.
Yeah.
For me, that was part of my process to arriving where I'm at now. For some people, that's part of their process to like learning moderation. Moderation didn't work for me, but yeah, I think it got really scary there for a lot of people because of the isolation, people not having to go to work. Gosh, I remember there was a Facebook group where people were just like, for no good reason, they were like, we're going to have costume themes every day. And people would like post pictures of themselves with alcohol in costumes because they had nothing else to do. But it was like, that's going to take a toll, if you're doing that every day. So to kind of see how it like dipped, but then as, we've kind of started to like come out the pandemic, like, I think people really recognizing that like, that's their only coping tool. And we need, as a society, like we need to equip our friends and family and neighbors with better coping tools. Like if alcohol is the go-to, like we're doomed. It's not super healthy. So it's like empowering when we start talking about like moving these conversations from alcohol being the norm. Like, you talk about all these social events that are like sponsored by alcohol. We need to get our friend Wes over there at Clean Cause. Like, can he be a sponsor of the Super Bowl and have like Clean Cause Sands Bar tailgate?
Hey,
Super Bowl 2023.
I would not be mad at it. From your lips to Wes's ears. I love Wes. So inspired by everything that Clean Cause has been able to do. And I think that that's just a good example of a brand who has really redefined what it meant to like change culture. And I think that that's a beautiful example of what I think Sands Bar aims to do. And so many of these other brands, we aim to do so much more than just say we're against alcohol. We are for the cause, right? We're for people getting better. We're for recovery. We're standing for something and not just against something.
Right. Yeah. What was, I'll have to think of it. I'll look it up. I saw some meme the other day when I was scrolling through Instagram that was like, I'll have to come back. I'm going to look for it. I'll come back to it though. But it's super relevant. Like not, okay, it's bugging me. I have to find it. Cause I think, I'm going to read it and I'll be like, this is not relevant. But kind of in that same essence of, standing for something instead of being anti something. I think that's just it's more like inclusive and it's less abrasive. It's like, it's kind of like opening your arms instead of trying to like cut people off. While I look for that though, because I do want to be mindful of time and not get lost in the rabbit hole of memes. But I wanted to ask you, I might kind of skip that one question I had. But I know, so we talked about Sands Bar in Austin, Texas, and I know that you've got a couple of other things going on just outside of the brick and mortar in Austin. What's the address though, really quick, what's the address of your bar?
Here in Austin, it's 1818 East 12th Street.
Go visit 1818 East 12th Street in Austin on Fridays.
Yes. But if you're not able to come to Austin, then I will probably be coming near you. So since 2019, I've been doing a Sands Bar national tour, and it's a series of 15 or more stops across the country where I do a pop-up in each city. And so I rent out a venue. We have like great drinks. We have great music. This year, we're bringing some very well-known influencers and writers on our tour so that they can do a book reading and book signings. It's going to be a really cool experience no matter where you're at. So if you're in, I guess, I mean, I'm not hitting Colorado and I'm not hitting like the Southwest, but I'm hitting the Midwest pretty significantly this year. Back East, I'm hitting pretty good, and the West Coast, of course. So if you're curious about that, you can visit my website, thesandsbar.com, go to our tours page and find out where we're going to be next, purchase a ticket, and join us in one of these amazing nights full of fun, great light bites, music, and of course, drinks.
Yeah, super awesome. I'm looking at the website right now. Yeah, so it kicks off with South by Southwest in Austin. And yeah, you definitely are covering the entire United States. I mean, sprinkled throughout. No, you're not coming to Colorado, but whatever. I need to come to Austin. So, but yeah, you got a lot of great cities on here, like Chicago, Seattle, Atlanta, Minneapolis, San Francisco. Shout out to Minneapolis. I'm a big fan of Atmosphere. So other than that, I don't really have any ties to Minneapolis, but that was for you, Slug. No. Try to get him on the show one of these days. But yeah, that's super exciting. So you do these tours. I know you were doing them before the pandemic, so I'm really happy to see that they are back on the calendar. Yeah, because honestly, Sandsbar is the first like concept of this that I've ever heard of too. Like I'd never heard of the idea of having like a bar that doesn't serve alcohol. You know, in my mind, whatever, 4 or 5 years ago, that was like, what?
Well, I mean, 5 years ago, it wasn't possible. So there have been iterations of like cafes that are like recovery cafes and things like that. But the intention was never like centered around the bar experience. And Sands Bar was really the first bar kind of experience in the United States that was really focused on that bar aspect of the experience. So not just the drinks, but the fun of the bar, the mystery of the bar. You just can't go to a coffee shop and like dance in the middle of the coffee shop. You can't.
I mean, you can, and I will, but that doesn't mean people aren't going to look at me like I'm loopy.
Make it home safely. You may take a detour to like the county jail or something. People may look at you weird. You can't really go to a coffee shop and meet someone new. You're usually going to a Starbucks or local coffee shop to meet someone you already know, and that's where. You don't really go to a coffee shop like, hey, how you doing? Like you can't, it's weird. It's weird.
You're like, I'm about to be in a Zoom meeting with my HR department. Get out of here.
Right. You can't do that in a coffee shop, but in a bar, you really legitimately can meet new people. Mm-hmm. Right. It lends itself to like introducing yourself to new people. It lends itself to new experiences. It lends itself to a different kind of atmosphere in a different way of being. So that's why the idea of it being Sands Bar is such a crucial part of the vision that I had. I really wanted this to be a space that felt, sounded, and looked like a bar.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's so much fun too. Yeah, because there's no other business model venue where it's like, yeah, you can get music, you can get dancing, karaoke, whatever. So especially when we talk about, younger people, like young adults, and meeting people, that is definitely one of the biggest issues. Cause it's like, you're kind of the weird person when you're in your like recovery group, like that's kind of like weird when people start to like commingle in those spaces. And there's some kind of like, sometimes a negative connotation with that. So I don't know. I like, I left a long-term relationship about a year ago, and I remember, like, not like I was trying to jump back into the dating scene, but I remember part of the reason I think I stayed for so long was like, like, I never did the whole like app thing, and like no judgment. I know that's kind of like where people are at, but I was like, I don't know, that seems weird to me. I don't want to do the dating app. And even if I did, it's like, can I date somebody that drinks, or like, I don't know. It was like, the dating pool gets even smaller when you're a person that chooses not to drink, depending on like how you interact with that in your relationships. So it's so cool that, yeah, it's kind of like bringing back like this old fashioned way to meet people, like in person, just out having fun.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very analog, meet people the old school way in person. But
We
yeah,
need more analog after the last 2 years. I think we've all had enough digital for 2 years.
hey, I agree. I agree. And I hope that more people give it a chance. And I think that, to your point about dating, which is a real legitimate thing, like when I was 23 years old, there literally was like a taboo about dating in your own recovery circle. Like you don't do that. Like, but then where am I going to find someone?
Right.
Like, I was lucky enough to find my wife at school. I went back to school to become a counselor, and I just so happened to meet the person for me. And it just so happened that person didn't drink. Like it just so happened to be that way. Like they're not in recovery. My wife's not in recovery. It's just happened that way.
Right.
But for a lot of people, they don't have that kind of luck. And there should be a space where it's not uncommon to not drink. It should be a safe space where everyone feels like, you know what, I don't drink, but can I still like buy you a drink that's non-alcoholic? And can we chat? Can we learn about each other? There should be a space for that. And I want that to be Sans Bar.
Definitely. Well, then we need a Sans Bar in every major city in the United States.
That's the goal. That's the goal. In 8 years' time, I want there to be a Sans Bar in every major city, the top 20 cities across the United States. I want there to be a Sans Bar. If we can build a Starbucks in every city, we should be able to build a Sans Bar in every city. Because again, I do think there's a loneliness epidemic in this country, and it presents itself in all kinds of ways. We may not see it directly, but we see the results of it through death by suicide. We see it through overdose. We see it through, I honestly believe a lot of the violence that we see in our country is due to people feeling alone and afraid and not having anyone to talk to. So when people have dark thoughts or they don't feel safe within themselves, there's nowhere for people to go. And I'm not saying that Sans Bar is going to cure all of that, but I do think we can put a little bit of good into the world, right? By offering an opportunity for people to not be alone.
Right. I mean, even if it's a space for that one person, one person that's feeling alone, that's like, you know what? I'm going to go play pool. I don't know if you guys have a pool table there. I'm going to go play pool. I'm going to go sing a song. Like even just that one positive experience and maybe, meeting another human being. Like if that impacts one person, that's a big W in my book,
Oh yeah.
But it sounds like you're definitely reaching more than just one person. So, so we talked a little bit about that. So yeah, definitely check out the website, and I'll make sure that the website is linked in our show notes so people can click on them, and just go straight there. But when I was looking around your website, I was noticing this like Sans Bar Academy.
Yes.
What is it? What is the Sans Bar Academy?
So in addition to just wanting there to be more Sans Bar pop-ups across the country, I don't really have to have it just be Sans Bar. I want there to be 100 other versions of alcohol-free bars and spaces. And so that's why I created Sans Bar Academy. I started Sans Bar with $200, no experience. I had no bartending experience and no restaurant management experience. And I had to acquire a lot of those skills over the past 4 to 5 years. And I wanted to create a low-cost way for people to become part of this movement, to create their own pop-ups, their own influencer brands, whatever their heart desires. I want to be there to help them build that. And so while it is educational in nature and the idea is to teach and impart knowledge, it's really about the connections that I have, leveraging those connections to create more spaces like this. And then also just finding each other and finding other entrepreneurs who are excited about building a business model that's sustainable and that grows this non-alc movement, because we really need more people in the movement. And I believe that there's so many people who are dying to know about this, and they're not just in New York, LA, or Chicago. They're in small cities in Georgia. They're in Southern Colorado. They're in northeastern Vermont. Like there's people who need this so desperately, and we need to be able to reach them. And I know that Sandspar can't be there to reach everyone. So I wanted to create a space where everyone had a chance to learn, to grow, develop their own non-alc concept.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm looking at the website again. It looks like, so it's like a 10
10-week
week
course. And every week we meet virtually to learn about the different modules for that week. And the final exam, how you get your final grade, is you create a zero proof pop-up where you do your own event in your city. And it can either be virtual or in person, but that's your grade. And we have a big virtual graduation, where people come on Zoom and wish you well, and you get to connect to people in the industry. So it's a really fun experience. It breaks down to like $50 a week. And we think 10 weeks is a fun way to really get to know other people and get to know this historic movement that is nothing like this has ever existed in any other category before. We are literally writing history as we go. And the invitation is there at Sandspar Academy to become part of that history.
So cool. Yeah, that's a screaming deal. $50 a week. You get to learn, and there's no expectation. So when they host the pop-up, like, are they supposed to promote it as a Sandspar event?
No, like I said, I really believe that diversity is a big part of like how life is sustained. If you follow like anything biological in this in our universe, the more diversity an ecosystem has, the better chance it has of succeeding. So if everything is just Sandspars, there's a good chance it won't succeed, because if one Sandspar gets sick, or if something, God forbid, happened to me, then it's gone. I want there to be a Sandspar, and I want there to be another kind of bar, and I need there to be another kind all over the country, so that the diversity gives us strength, and we can help each other, and we can be different, and we can shape each other and sharpen each other. I believe that is the most important thing I can do. So instead of just growing the Sandspar brand selfishly, I really believe that this is about creating diversity so that we can have this in 20 years' time, so that when my kids go into college, there's not even a question about whether there's an alcohol-free product or not for them. That every place they go, that every restaurant that they go to, there's a cocktail and mocktail menu. It will be so common. It will be as though it had never been any other kind of way. That's the vision that I have. But to get there, we have to have a diversity in our ecosystem. And that is what the Sandspar Academy is about.
Oh man, I'll have to check that out. That might be helpful for me in my my Snowdown event.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll try to get set up. It looks like you've got one going on right now. It was like January 5th through May. And then is there another one? Is that June? Is the next one?
The next one starts up in June.
Yeah.
And that one runs. Yeah, that might be the one. That summer semester may be the one for you.
Might be. No, that's so cool. And I don't know, just thank you for being so, like not rigid and closed off. Like, I think that is really important, because it's like, if we want to see, like, it'd be cool if in Austin people knew that they could go to Sandspar, but then they could also, like, they have options. Like, you have options to go to multiple different bars that, like, they have a different vibe. There's like the biker bar, or the, whatever, different like types of scenes at bars, whatever. So it'd be kind of cool to have that within the like zero proof world. I'm from Colorado, and I know Awake made some big news. They're the new sober bar in Denver that I think opened up like a month ago.
Just talk to Billy. Just talk to Billy, and they're franchising their model. Which is great. And I love that they're franchising. And I think that's, again, we need several Awakes. We need several Sandspars. Like, I just studied a lot of movements, a lot of social movements as I've been creating Sandspar, and even before then. And I just realized that a lot of social movements die because, like, there's this idea that I have to get as much out of it as I can right now. So I'm just going to, like, instead of it lasting for a decade or 20 or 30 years, I'm just going to squeeze it all out right now for myself. And then there's nothing else for anyone else. And I love Sandspar. It's my third child, but it's not even the best idea I've had, frankly. like I want to change the world in so many other ways. That Sandspar and this whole zero proof movement, it's a good idea, but it's not even the best one. I definitely believe we have a long ways to go in connecting humans back to each other, in learning to accept each other and grow with each other and grow together. And I want to spend my time developing products and services that are connected to connecting people. That is what I'd rather be spending my time on. So yes, the alcohol-free movement, yes, because we need to be present and aware. But this mind has so many other things that I'm not worried about making my entire the name or legacy for myself just in non-alcoholic bars. It is one thing of three that I want to do in this world.
One of three. Do you want to expand, or are those
No,
not at this point?
Look, we're on a podcast for this. If it's another podcast for something else, yeah. But no, I honestly, I really do believe that the best thing that we can do for each other is just try to come back to each other. Mm-hmm. I think that so much of the division in our world is just, it's never going to be solved through like politics. It's never going to be solved through like the things that already exist. Right. Because those things were already built in with like greed and like, you know, someone having to lose so that other people win. And I just stay up at night trying to figure out like, how can we just make sure that more people win? How can we make sure that everyone feels seen and heard? I really do believe that violence, school shootings, terrorism, like these are problems that are within our ability to solve. Like, I really do believe that. Like, I believe like we can solve these problems, but we can't do it alone. We need each other, and we need to learn from each other. So yeah, a lot of good ideas percolating up in my head.
Well, when you're ready to share, would love to explore those more. But I mean, yeah, I think the whole concept of inspiring and encouraging people to start to like consciously connect is like the first step, you know, that's like the top layer. And then that's going to just like open up so much more. And yes, like I think that we are like a population of people like desperate for connection. You know, unfortunately, like connection these days means like phones, you know, like people feel connected because they see people on a screen, don't even realize they haven't talked to them in a year and there hasn't been like actual connection, you know? So it's like, believe me, I definitely have a lot of gratitude for all of our technology and, you know, how it's definitely served a purpose these last couple of years. But I think it's something that we need to be really careful with, and we need to like make sure that we're holding space to have like real human connection in the physical world. Especially after these last couple of years. I saw a commercial the other day that made me frustrated. It was for I'm not going to say any businesses, but it was for like an online virtual meeting application. Yeah. And it was like promoting, you know, somebody was like getting in a cab, going somewhere else, and they were able to like sustain their meeting. I'm like, what is that promoting? They're like telling people that they can never stop working. We can't even go from point A to point B without stopping work. Like, we shouldn't be promoting that kind of behavior. Like, we need to detach from these like devices and learn how to, connect with other humans, and like maybe just enjoy the cab ride and have a conversation with the driver. Like, be a human for a minute.
Something you said very early on really resonated with me in this conversation. You said very early on, you said that we don't learn how to connect to each other. And it's true. You learn, I mean, government economics, you learn biology, you learn chemistry, a lot of things you'll never really use in this world. But the one thing that you don't learn is how to be a socialized individual. Like, you don't really learn that past kindergarten in the United States. And because you don't learn it, the second someone puts a substance in front of you that makes it easier, it just seems like this is what we do. We just, if I don't know how to be a social being, I can just drink and it doesn't matter. And I also think that alcohol is, it's not an accident that we have happy hours and company parties that have lots of alcohol, because we really use alcohol as a shortcut to disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we change the way we feel the fastest. And I feel like our modern economic system requires that of us. It requires us to like black out, tap out as fast as possible so we can get back to work. And so, like, there's this hustle culture where we just have to, like, instead of having a real relaxing 3-day weekend, you can just have 6 shots, pass out, and that's a good time, right? Like when you think about it, like that's what we call a good time. And there's something good about it. Again, not saying that alcohol is bad, just saying that even the lack of sleep and the short amount of time you're away from your job is problematic. Like that's what I think we could work on and be better at. But like we've strayed way off. We're way off of like what we were talking about before. But this has been a great
just like we talked about earlier. We're like, put 2 people in recovery in a room, like, you know, we're never going to stop talking.
Never. It'll never end. And I'm not bored. I'm not like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. Like, this is a great conversation, but like, seriously, this is one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. You allowed me to think beyond, because I love talking about Sandbar, and I'm going to do this for a long time because I feel like there's a lot of history yet to write in this chapter of my life. But by no means is this the only thing that I'm doing or the only thing that I'm working on. Like, I'm working on other things that are just as brilliant as Sandbar. And I love the ability to be able to talk about those things. And I think that kind of leads up to like how I define recovery. I define recovery as freedom to do whatever I want as long as I'm willing to live with the consequences. When I was drinking, I did not have freedom. I didn't have freedom to dream this big. My dreams were really limited and small. And my brain was just focused on surviving. It was literally just like, how am I going to get through today? How it's a Sunday and they don't serve liquor on Sunday, or the liquor store's not open on Sundays. I would have to wonder, how am I going to make it through Sunday? Because if I don't get a drink in me, I'm gonna start to shake and I don't want to have another seizure. Like, that was my reality. I was just focused on surviving. And recovery today means that I get to be above that horrible, horrible threshold of existence. I get to live fully. I'm rested, I'm healthy, I'm safe. And that gives me the ability to dream these incredibly huge and audacious dreams. I get to dream crazy big. I get to dream movement big. And that's where Sandbar came from. And that's where everything else that I will do, hopefully, in this world comes from. It's the freedom to be bold and daring and audacious and creative and Chris. Like, I get to do that today. And I've been doing that for 15 years of my life. And I really do hope that I have another 15 years. I hope I have another 45 years, frankly, of doing this, because this journey has been amazing. And I can't imagine what life will be like in another 30 years for me.
Right. Oh, Chris, that was so wonderfully said. I mean, yeah, you are definitely a prime example of, like, you're not just surviving, you are thriving. And you're not only, you're helping other people thrive too by, like, exploring this new kind of lifestyle. So it's a beautiful thing. I'm really excited to see Sandbar and I don't know, get more connected, do an academy, bring a pop-up here, something like that. Either or all of it. Do it all. Wow. I also dream big, sometimes too big, and I wear too many hats. And I need to learn how to take off one hat before I put the next hat on sometimes.
Yeah, same. But at the same time, like, I have the freedom to do that. I have the freedom to fail. Like, so what? I dream too big and I have too many hats on and I'm working on too many things at once. So what? You know what happens? Things take longer to get done. But the things get done. Like I'm playing with house money. Like I literally did not think I was going to make it to live past 30,
Right.
you know? And here I am in the bonus part of my life. So yeah, do it all, live it all, be it all. Like the world is yours.
I have that tattooed on my arm.
No way.
Yeah. I'm like, should I show you? Like, it's
No,
this
I
girl.
believe you.
She's like sitting on the globe, and then it's got like
oh my gosh, look at that. That's so dope.
Yeah, people are always like Scarface. I'm all, yep, that's what I was doing. No.
Nice.
Just a reminder that, yeah, I mean, the world is our stage, and it's like we can kind of, there's obviously limits and there's some things we don't have control over, but we definitely get to like direct the majority of our lives, you know? So it's like up to us to, you know, bad things might happen, but we get to choose how to respond to them, you know? It's like choose your own adventure. Well, really beautifully said. Thank you so much. I mean, this has been a terrific conversation. And I'm really happy that our listeners kind of get to be enlightened into like the concept of Sans Bar as a place for connection, not just a place for alcohol. There's zero proof cocktails. I gotta work on that language thing.
Yeah, there you go. You get it though. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally understand like the power that words have. So sometimes you just gotta kind of like hear the description or the explanation, and then now I'll be intentional about that language moving forward. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking time on your recovery birthday to talk to Recovery Corner. Do you have any like fun things or nice things planned with your family tonight? Like surf and turf or something?
I'm going to go for a run right now because I'm like, this has been awesome. And I can't think of a better way to like honor this day than to honor this body. Right. And then beyond that, who knows? I might go to sleep. No. This has been a full day, and this conversation has been so satisfying. I usually don't. This is going to sound horrible, but I usually don't listen to podcasts that I'm on. I don't like to hear my own voice. I will definitely listen back to this one because I loved this conversation.
It's been a great conversation. So yeah, listen back and send it out to your networks too, and have them listen too.
Oh, for sure.
Well, right on. Well, we are going to wrap things up, but once again, I'm your host, Candace Rose. New episodes of Recovery Corner are available every other Wednesday as early as 5 a.m. And you can catch us on all the major audio platforms, as well as see these mugs on YouTube. As always, here at YPR, we do recover and we are in your corner. Thank you for listening.